We have called the Lambeth Witness Group. Israel bombed the Iranian embassy in Damascus on the 1st of this month. And what did the Archbishop say? Nothing. The inevitable Iranian response killed no one. But Justin Welby, our Archbishop, tweeted, "The attacks on Israel by Iran this weekend were wrong. They risked civilian lives and they escalated the already dangerous tensions in the region. I pray for the peace and security of Israel's people." The bias towards Israel is shocking. There was no acknowledgement that Israel initiated the attacks, which looked like a deliberate attempt to escalate the war. Our government gave Israel the green light to attack Gaza after October 7th. It supplies Israel with arms. It buys arms from Israel and sells arms to Israel. Israeli company Elbit makes its drones in this country, drones like the one which killed 7 aid workers earlier this month. Justin Welby is one of the 26 bishops who sit at the heart of government. They are there to give a moral compass. But do they? Their mantra has been, Israel has the right to defend itself. No mention of Palestinian rights. On October 7th, Hamas killed around 1,200 Israelis and still holds around 130 hostages. Palestinians have the right to resist occupation using force under international law. They do not have the right to kill civilians or to take hostages. These are both war crimes. Compare the figures. Israel has killed nearly 40,000 people, 3/4 of whom are women and children. And they have left 17,000 orphans, many with the loss of one or more limbs. Half the homes in Gaza have been bombed, all the hospitals, all the universities, many schools, mosques and churches. Does that look like self-defense? And actually, under international humanitarian law, Israel does not have the right to self-defense. According to a ruling of the International Court of Justice in 2004, the occupying power has no right to defend itself against the people that it's occupying. We're here today to demand that the established church of this country does its job. It must recognise that a humanitarian ceasefire, release of the hostages, a huge increase in humanitarian aid, all highly desirable in themselves, are not enough. It must look at the root cause of the problem and take up the cause of the marginalised and oppressed, as their mentor, Jesus of Nazareth, did so consistently. In 1937, David Ben-Gurion, the future PM of Israel, wrote, "We must expel the Arabs and take their places." That has always been the intention, and we are witnessing another and possibly final chapter in this saga. Israeli grandma Daniela Weiss is already reserving beachfront plots for settler colonialists in Gaza, quote, "because it's a beautiful, beautiful coast. Beautiful golden sand," she said. Other Israelis say Europe, which has already absorbed so many refugees, should take the unwanted Palestinians. When will the scales fall from the eyes of our church leaders? When will they speak out against ethnic cleansing and genocide? Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank the organisers of this little demonstration and thank them for inviting me to speak I represent the Jewish Network for Palestine, and it's vital for a Jewish voice to expose the lie that this is a religious battle, a battle between Jews and Muslims. Also, if anyone tells you it's complicated, they are lying. The truth is simple. It is violent, racist Zionism versus human rights. It is forcibly squatting colonisers versus indigenous Palestinians of all religions and none. It is oppressor versus the oppressed. Many prominent Jewish individuals and organisations oppose a Zionist Jewish homeland, as it implies Jewish people do not belong anywhere except Israel. Of course, all people, including Jews, must feel safe, indeed celebrated, wherever they live, but no one should expect superior rights. So, oppose anti-Semitism, but also oppose violent, racist, Zionist apartheid. Zionism was a fringe movement until after the horrors of the Holocaust. Then, in 1948, the Zionist Nakba destroyed hundreds of Palestinian villages, slaughtered thousands of innocent Palestinian men, women and children, and hundreds of thousands of Palestinian refugees fled in fear. Thus, Israel was founded on violent racist theft, and the so-called two-state solution has been used to distract from the ongoing theft of Palestinian homes, theft of Palestinian land, theft of Palestinian freedoms, theft of Palestinian lives. Zionists are guilty of yet another theft, that of Jewish identity. Criticising Israeli racism is not anti-Jews. In fact, anti-Zionists promote the long Jewish tradition of justice and progressive politics. In 1948, Israel stole 78% of Palestine, including the most fertile coastal strip. After 1967, Israel imposed control on the rest. Violent Israeli colonialism is supported by Western corporate interests, financially, militarily, diplomatically, and ideologically, and in the media. Why? Partly to create a client state to protect strategic Western interests in the Middle East, partly to reduce Jewish refugees resorting to the USA and Europe. But why should Palestinians pay the price for European Holocaust? We cannot rely on governments for justice or the media for truth, so we must use social media, friends, family, neighbours, colleagues, community, political and religious groups. JMP promotes a single secular state as the sole sustainable solution. Equal human rights and dignity for all between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean Sea. We call it convivencia, living together, for Muslims, Jews and Christians, which had largely existed in Palestine for hundreds of years. JMP is a Jewish-led and Jewish-inspired organisation, but it welcomes members whoever supports us from all religions or none. You can learn more from JMP's website and Facebook page. Thank you very much.
Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
Make it loud and clear. Free, free!
Palestine!
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My colleague Masood was supposed to come today and speak, but he is ill and he is not able to make it today, so I just came in to say a few words. As a Muslim and representative of IHRC, I'm very concerned about the role of any spiritual leadership. It doesn't matter which spiritual background we're from. It doesn't matter which spiritual teachings we affiliate ourselves with. But the most important thing is to make sure we are committed with the ethical principles. Now, especially if any one of us is in a position of leadership, we cannot have any excuse to let down these ethical principles. There's no greater issue right now than what is happening in Gaza. There's no greater issue at the moment which we can say that ethically is important than what's happening in Gaza. We haven't seen in our lifetime genocide happening the way it is happening in Gaza. And not to call what it is and not to make any stand against it is outrageous and not acceptable by anyone. Especially if it's a leadership, it is important that we lead our community based on the ethical principles we follow. What I also think, and I'm happy that it's happening, is to see the different communities, people following different spiritual teachings are joining their hands to make this world a better place to live. Thank you very much. Free, free! Free, free!
My name is Miranda Pinch. My mother was a secular Jewish refugee from the Holocaust and was ashamed of what was being done to the Palestinians in her name as a Jew. So I was not brought up Jewish, and as there was no synagogue where I lived, I became an active member of the local Anglican church. In 2009, I spent 3 months in Hebron as a human rights monitor, and since then I have watched the situation for the Palestinians steadily deteriorate, and I have become more active in advocating for their rights, their freedoms, and the autonomy denied them by the Israeli occupation. The dehumanization of the Palestinians and the bias towards Israel, despite their behavior to non-Jews, often in the name of the Holocaust, has been endemic. Israel receives every kind of support by Western governments at the expense of the Palestinian people. What happened on the 7th of October was a product of what always was and increasingly has become ethnic cleansing of non-Jews throughout the land illegally occupied by Israel, including East Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Gaza. I have become ashamed of not just the behavior of Jews, many of whom, like me, are descended from those who suffered terrible persecution, but of the church I belong to. Many do not even know that there are still Christians in Gaza, and that the number of Christians in East Jerusalem, which includes the Old City, Bethlehem and Nablus, have declined terribly, not because of their Muslim neighbours, but because the occupation and oppression has made their continuing existence there untenable. Even the Tent of Nations, lauded by the Archbishop, is always under existential threat from both the harsh military laws denying Palestinian ownership of land and the constant violence from settlers. Now we all watch in utter incomprehension as government and church alike refuse to call out the Israeli government for its racist barbarism and savagery towards every living thing in Gaza, including its very ecology and infrastructure. I stand with many Christians and Jews alike who ask the Archbishop to use his privileged position, along with his other bishops in the House of Lords, to speak out. Speak out against the brutal occupation, oppression and ethnic cleansing that has led to this terrible situation. Speak out against the arms trade with Israel. Speak up for human rights, international law, security, autonomy for the Palestinians as equal human beings, and encourage your church to do the same. Thank you.